Time for a new Mad Musings, and also to finish off the Fantasy Flight Games run of 40k products. Today we're looking at the fourth game in the series, Black Crusade. This one's a bit of a mixed bag, as it revised the core system with its mechanics, something that future releases would adhere to, but it was also the only one that restricted itself in playstyle as you were playing Agents of Chaos, making crossovers with the other four games almost impossible. Throw in the game's split focus on cultists versus space marines, and you get a game with a narrow scope and an uncertain premise. I'm Mr. Welch, and let's be bad guys. Black Crusade debuted in 2011, fourth in the release schedule between Deathwatch and Only War. It was a major diversion from the previous books. Not only were you playing the bad guys, but the game largely did away with the previous class level system from the first three games. The game also presents two playable options, Chaos Space Marines and Chaos Cultists. This causes a bit of a power imbalance that can't be rectified, as there's no way a cultist is ever going to rise to the power of a starting Space Marine. Mixing the two in a single campaign is a good way to destroy it. Instead, you have to design the party around one or the other. Sam Stewart was the lead game designer, and the list of artists is longer than my arm. Keeping in the style of Fantasy Flight, the art is top-notch. That is something that they never skimped on. The ultimate goal of Black Crusade is to become a Demon Prince. You do this by raising your infamy score to a specified amount. If successful, you change from your mortal form to a demonic form and go off having all sorts of demonic fun, though it does take you out of the campaign. However, if your corruption hits 100 before you max out your infamy, instead you turn into a chaos spawn, mindless, shapeless, and having the constant urge to scream despite having no mouth. In either case, your character is done. The game comes in with a built-in timer. The players will either die, mutate, or ascend. There's no other options. The mechanics that Black Crusade introduced move completely away from the classes, though it does have starting templates for every player. Unlike previous games, the skills and talents are not restricted by class. Instead, the price for every advancement depends entirely on your alignment to the Chaos Gods. An acolyte sworn to Khorne, the demon lord of war, slaughter, and Swedish death metal album covers, gets a deep discount on all abilities that help him slaughter people in geysers of blood. Conversely, abilities tied to Slaanesh, Demon Prince of Excess, Pleasure, and Hollywood executives, are more expensive for the Khornite acolyte. You don't have to follow the suggested path for your character in terms of building your abilities. It's just much cheaper if you do. So now you have your Chaos Space Marine or Evil Cultist, and you're ready to go take on the forces of the Imperium and start up your own Black Crusade. Or you would if the rules allowed it. Unfortunately, the selection of people you can actually fight from the Imperium is less than 10 in the main book. The game expects you to be fighting other agents of chaos to try to rise in the ranks of the corrupted, and more importantly, the eyes of the Chaos Gods. If you truly want to war against the Imperial Guard, Inquisitors, or Space Marines, you need to go out and get books from other game lines. While they don't match up perfectly to Black Crusade's updated rules, they're close enough. The only exception to that is Only War, which did use Black Crusade's new rules patterns. The game is set largely in the Screaming Vortex, a gathering of worlds trapped in a roiling warp storm forever cut off from the Imperium. These worlds are filled with all manners of unspeakable horrors and mind-shattering impossibilities, or as the player characters call it, home. The worlds are described briefly in the main book, and many of them get a much larger spotlight in the various splat books. Here you will find worlds comprised entirely of flesh, eternal war, hyper-advanced societies that use souls for coins, or where the laws of reality change day to day. There's a lot of places to die in the Screaming Vortex, but some of them are more inviting than others. One problem game masters will find running Black Crusade is the treacherous nature of the game. Take the constant backstabbing of paranoia, but then play it completely straight. That's the classic problem of running an evil game. Everyone is in it for themselves. That's the nature of chaos. There is no cooperation between the various factions unless somehow there's a direct benefit for them. This falls to the player characters as well, aggravated by the alliances to the dark powers that are mandatory for most of the party. Finding an artifact of great power that would help the party, instead, often leads to a near TPK as the strongest claim it for themselves, and the final owner is the survivor of the contest. Black Crusade is good for a lark, especially for people who have been playing the other 40k games and want to try the black hat on for a while. Not that playing Agents of the Inquisition or Rogue Traders are remotely squeaky clean. The game has a built-in finish line. You aren't playing long campaigns for Black Crusade. Even if you ignore the corruption and infamy trackers, the cutthroat nature of the setting makes sure players aren't long for this game. Black Crusade is easily the deadliest of the 40k line of RPGs. And that's saying a lot, considering this series includes Dark Heresy and Only War. Still, some people swear by this game, with the lethality being its best feature. If you're a 40k enthusiast and can't get enough background on the dark future, you're going to want to get Black Crusade. Fantasy Flight's 40k line in terms of quality is second to none, and Black Crusade is no exception. The books are packed with gorgeous art, if not a bit unsettling in this case. The background information found in every book is worth it just for the read for most 40k players. Considering most of the information in the books has been adopted as official canon by GW, it's good to get it straight from the source. These books are some of the only ones to detail life as minions of chaos in great detail, which just increases their popularity among collectors. Black Crusade does suffer the same problem as Deathwatch does, with Space Marines dominating play compared to Acolytes. Chaos Space Marines do get less starting skills, but they're superior in every other way. They have better stats, unnatural strength, and durability, a whole host of additional powers from their implants. They have double the wounds of Acolytes on average. Before you start a campaign, you have to decide if you want to go with the low-powered Acolyte campaign or the almost cartoonish Space Marine Crusade. Space Marines are great if you want players to cut loose and just blow through hordes without slowing down, but remember they suck at just about everything else that isn't killing things. Collecting Black Crusade is both easy and difficult depending on what books you're looking for. It doesn't have a lot of books. It only has 6, which ties it with only war for the fewest from the initial run. The problem is 2 of the books were underprinted and very difficult to find. The tomes of Fate and Decay are commonly found at list price. There wasn't a large demand for them. But the tomes of Blood and Excess never got a second print run, and they are very hard to find. Online, those 2 will go for hundreds of dollars. So again, it's a mixed bag. You've only got 6 books to collect, but those 2 will cost more than the rest of the books combined on average. Thus concludes Black Crusade. It's a diversion from the other 40k RPGs, one that doesn't offer the crossover potential that the other 4 do, unless you're scouring the other books for bad guys, as Black Crusade is the only setting that doesn't have a bestiary book. If you're a 40k collector, you will want the set. Otherwise, just pick it up if you can find it cheap. Next up in Mad Musings is the hot new game Morkborg, or what happens when Deathclock designs an RPG. But until then, remember, war. War never changes.